These are some quotes I took from the book Intensity by Dean Koontz. I picked them out on November 14th, 2022. The first one: every new revelation, and there was much still to reveal, was as difficult as the one before it when she spoke of the past. It sounded as if someone were opening a giant door in the wall of night itself and stepping in from another world. The second cry was indisputably of the moment, not a memory. She wanted to believe that the voice had come from outside, so she continued to stare into the night, surveying the vineyards on the hills beyond. Breeze-driven waves swelled through the dry grass on the moon-washed slopes, a water mirage like the ghost tides of an ancient sea. Trouble often followed voices raised in one kind of fashion or another. Sometimes, however, the worst offenses were preceded by calculated silences and stealth. Appearances and realities were seldom the same, and the human talent for deception was far greater than that of the chameleon, the mockingbird, or the praying mantis, which masked its ferocious cannibalism. Any well-trained psychoanalyst would have a wealth of labels to pin on someone who leaped first to a negative conclusion, who lived in expectation of sudden violence. But she had to trust her instinct. It had been honed by many years of hard experience. But personal safety at the expense of others was cowardice, and cowardice was a right only of small children who lacked the strength and experience to defend themselves. It's not possible to retreat into a bottomless pit. One can only plunge. At some point in the book, the word unplumbable showed up. I'd never heard of it, so I looked it up. The definition is not fully examined or explained. As she closed the bureau, she smelled burned gunpowder underlying the hot copper stench of fresh blood. Little side note that I wrote, that I am oddly familiar with that odor. After a long and late night spent at CVS on Mamaroneck Avenue in White Plains, awaiting the manager's arrival at 8 a.m. that Friday morning, I was waiting, and suddenly there was like a scent cloud, is the only way I know how to describe it, around me, and then the smell was like hot metal and blood, which is a scent that I'd never smelled before, and it kept like following me. Like I was sitting down in one area, and then like I moved to a different area altogether and like sat down elsewhere, and the smell was still there, and like I kept moving around hoping that it would go away, but it kept following me. And it wasn't like CVS didn't smell like that, but for some reason the smell was like clouded around me. Afterward I decided it was probably what a room smells like after somebody is shot in it, like hot metal, which, like a gun and a bullet would probably be hot after being fired, because fire sounds like fire and that's hot, and would cause a victim to be bleeding. But why that smell was around me and I couldn't get like away from it, I couldn't duck it, was very strange. I have no explanation for it. I've never really talked to anyone about it either. So I decided to not leave that little side note unplumbable. Anyway, back to the quotes. The choice before her was the essence of the entire human agony. Grief welled in her, black and cold. Survival meant repressing it at all costs, and survival was the thing that she did best. Not knowing was ultimately worse than knowing. She returned to the bedroom. She stood in the darkest corner, shaking uncontrollably. Her stomach rolled, an acidic burning rose in her chest, and a bitter taste filled the back of her mouth. She suppressed an urge to vomit. She should have felt even more grief than she did, but she had only a limited capacity for it right now. Grief thrived in a quiet heart, and right now hers thundered with terror and revulsion. Side note, most of these quotes are about a girl named China Shepherd. It's a good book. Intensity. Anyway, China shuddered, stunned to be alive. I know that feeling well also. Let's get 2 pages forward. So, wrote for me in the middle. Anyway. The house held a drowning depth of stillness as the dam held water with tremendous pent-up power. The hallway was deserted. China hurried to the head of the curved stairs, hesitant to commit herself to the tenebrous layer below. I didn't know the definition of tenebrous, so I looked it up. Dark, shadowy, or obscure. And another word that came up in the book that I didn't know. Limned, L-I-M-N-E-D. The definition of that is depicted or described in painting or words. Suffused or highlighted with a bright color or light. Next quote. Without closing the door behind him, the man appeared in the foyer, beyond the arch. He was dimly limned by the glow from the second-floor hallway. He passed the living room and went directly to the stairs. Next quote. So she kept going. There's nothing to do but keep going anyway. When she reached the swinging door sooner than she'd expected, she got to her feet. From the second floor, Laura cried out again. As cold as an Arctic current, the cry chilled China, numbed her, throbbed icily in the hollows of her bones. She was overcome by a compulsion to scream with Laura, as a dog wails in sympathy when it hears another dog suffering. A primal need to howl in misery at the sheer helplessness of human existence in a universe full of dead stars, and she had to fight that urge. The prolonged inactivity not only took a physical toll, but soon began to depress her. Back at the house, when she'd first heard the intruder, before he had even come to the guest room, China had known that safety lay in movement. Now, emotional safety lay in movement, distraction. But circumstances required her to be still and wait. She had too much time to think and too many distracting thoughts on which to dwell. And then lastly, surrendering to tears would be so easy, satisfying. These were selfish tears of defect. They would not only purge the heart of grief, but also wash out the need to care about anyone, anything. Blessed relief could be hers if she simply admitted that the long struggle to understand wasn't worth the pain of experience. 11/14/2022. Finished reading it at 8:48 p.m.